Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 213 based on novel. So let's start. Xiaoyang GGE, are you ready? Zuna sat in the air. Her tightly shut pretty eyes were slowly opened. She looked at Xiaoyang, who had suddenly stood up beside her, and rolled her eyes. Finally, she let out a sweet smile. I am. Xiaoyang nodded. He looked at the formation above his head. This formation had been formed by connecting some faint lines of fire, but there was a vague chill being emitted from it. This is the cold fire formation. This kind of chilling do-chi is not an ordinary cold fog. Instead, it is something that is produced after the temperature has been raised to a certain level. Normally speaking, it is a somewhat unique cold fire. Although this formation is not as terrifying as the one placed by the purifying demonic lotus saint, it will still be able to slightly suppress the purifying demonic lotus flame. Xiaoyang pointed at the formation above his head and explained it to Zuna, who had revealed some doubt in her pretty eyes. Zuna nodded with a sudden understanding after hearing this explanation. I am about to act to refine this purifying demonic lotus flame. Zuna, help me take a look. Xiaoyang smiled. His eyes shifted to the purifying demonic lotus flame as he spoke with a grave expression. Zuna's face became a lot more solemn. Refining the purifying demonic lotus flame would not be an easy task. If it was not done properly, one might even be refined by the purifying demonic lotus flame into ashes. Xiaoyang was naturally aware of such a risk, but he did not have the time to consider all the dangers at this moment. His hand seals changed and the formation in the sky began to rapidly rotate before an unusually dense cold air erupted within the formation. After which, it shot to where the demonic flame lotus was located through Xiaoyang's control. Under the influence of that cold air, the magma below emitted a cracked sound and solidified. Only the demonic fire lotus continued to slowly rotate as its many petals were covered by a thin layer of frost. Xiaoyang sighed in relief within his heart after verifying that the formation was of some use. He clenched his hand and a pink jade bottle appeared in it. The jade bottle was tilted and a pool of pale red liquid slid out. Finally, it fell onto the purifying demonic lotus flame. This pale red liquid was called drunken demon saliva. It boasted an extremely intense numbing effect. Of course, Xiaoyang did not hope to completely numb the demonic flame. He only wished to borrow the medicinal effects of this thing to cause the purifying demonic lotus flame to remain lazy. In this way, the demonic flame's strength would fall slightly and increase the refinement effect. The fire lotus slowly spread after the drunken demon saliva fell into the lotus. Even the flower petals had an additionally scent of laziness. Currently, the purifying demonic lotus flame might still possess some spirituality, but it did not possess any true intelligence. It still needed to have contact with humans for a period of time before it would become as intelligent as the previous purifying demonic lotus flame. Now, however, was the best opportunity for Xiaoyang to strike. Go! Xiaoyang did not stop after completing this step. He took out another medicinal pill from his storage ring. This medicinal pill immediately caused a bone-piercing cold fog to surge out. This medicinal pill was naturally the 9-yin yellow spring pill Xiaoyang had prepared. Xiaoyang flicked his finger and the 9-yin yellow spring pill flew forward. It swiftly melted upon contact with the purifying demonic lotus flame and formed layers of ice on the surface of the demon flame, but this ice had only just appeared when it was vaporized by that terrifying high temperature. Thus, wave after wave of a sizzling white fog continued to rise from the body of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Who? Xiaoyang exhaled a deep breath of air as he stood in the sky. He turned his head and nodded to Zuna. After which, he suddenly turned his body. His body flashed and appeared in front of the purifying demonic lotus flame. At this moment, the lotus flower petals on the purifying demonic lotus flame's body had drooped, revealing a cluster of pink flames in the middle. The cluster of flames looked like a newborn baby. A high temperature that caused one's soul to flutter radiated from the pink cluster of flames. Xiaoyang's eyes were extremely heated as he stared at this cluster of pink flames. This was the true demonic flame essence. One could not underestimate the small size of this fellow. This tiny cluster could incinerate those experts at the 6th star of the Doshan class into ashes if they accidentally let it into their bodies. There was no need to doubt its frightening strength. Xiaoyang stared at this cluster of demonic flame essence. The heavenly flame within his body began to wildly circulate. Finally, it agglomerated on the surface of his body, but this powerful heavenly flame, merged from many heavenly flames, appeared a little sluggish as it gathered on the surface of his body, but his heavenly flame appeared much dimmer since it was being deterred by the purifying demonic lotus flame. The top 3 flames on the heavenly flame ranking were all the kings of the heavenly flames. An ordinary heavenly flame loses its strength after meeting one of those kings. Even though Xiaoyang's heavenly flame was the merger of 5 heavenly flames, it was not able to fight this purifying demonic lotus flame. Xiao Yang did not have the time to worry about the dimness of the heavenly flame on his body. He slowly extended a trembling hand in front of Sun Er's anxious eyes and reached into the fire lotus. After which, he grabbed the cluster of pink flames. The moment Xiao Yang's hand touched the pink flames, those tiny flames began to swell in an instant. They turned into fierce flames that wrapped around Xiao Yang's body. A terrifying temperature that caused even the sky to change suddenly erupted. Xiao Yang ji. This unexpected change startled Sun Er. She hurriedly stood up. Her pretty eyes were incomparably anxious as they stared at the cluster of pink flames. Xiao Yang's face became distorted because of a pain that pierced his heart as he stood within the burning flames. He crazily urged the heavenly flame on his body to mitigate the damage from the high temperature of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Although he had made a lot of preparations, Xiao Yang could clearly sense just how terrifying the third-ranked heavenly flame on the heavenly flame ranking was. An intense panting sound was emitted from Xiao Yang's mouth as wave after wave of fresh bright red blood seeped out of his pores, but this blood had only just appeared when it solidified into a cuticle that firmly adhered to his skin. This caused Xiao Yang to appear as though he was wearing blood-colored armor. Ha, ha, ha. I have put in so much effort for this day. This little pain will not be able to stop me. Fresh blood dripped from all over Xiao Yang's body as his hair turned to ashes, leaving behind a round bald head. At a glance, he appeared extremely comical and miserable. His eyes were still open, but blood flowed in front of them until his eyesight became a little blurry. He stared at the pink flames above his palm as a ferocious smile formed on his face. After which, he stuffed the flames into his mouth in front of Sun Er's startled eyes and swallowed them into his body. Bang! The clothes formed by the ancient insect emperor on Xiao Yang's body instantly turned into ashes the moment the demonic flame essence entered his body. His skin rapidly vanished, revealing the flesh underneath. One could vaguely see some scales beneath his flesh. These scales were from the phoenix dragon ancient armor hidden within his skin, but at this moment, even the extremely hard ancient armor had become dull. Flame mantra, refine it. An intense pain that could not be described reached every part of Xiao Yang's body. That intense pain would usually cause one to go crazy, but Xiao Yang's eyes merely turned bright red. He relied on his perseverance to endure as a mad roar sounded within his heart. The do qi within Xiao Yang's body fearlessly charged toward the cluster of demonic flames. After which, the do qi forcefully wrapped around them and began to circulate them along the flame mantra's path. Hong. The demonic flame's essence seemed to have detected something when they felt the refinement process of the flame mantra, causing them to put up an intense struggle. The temperature of the flames became more terrifying, causing some of the weaker veins in Xiao Yang's body to turn into dust. Even some of his bones were showing signs of weakening. Sun Er cautiously watched the madly roaring and struggling Xiao Yang from the magma world in a startled manner. His body had shrunk by half and appeared quite frightening. Xiao Yang GG. Sun Er bit her lower red lip. Drops of bright red blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth, appearing extremely glaring. Every low roar from Xiao Yang was like a blade that cut her heart. That pain made even breathing difficult for her. This was the first time she could watch Xiao Yang swallow a heavenly flame. Although she did not feel it herself, she could have gained an idea of the indescribably intense pain that came from refining a heavenly flame. Xiao Yang had trained by himself over these years. Others might witness his shocking training speed, but they were unaware of the price he had to pay for his strength. Refine it. Xiao Yang's hissing roar once again echoed from the monstrous flame, but regardless of how much effort he put in, his body continued to become damaged. The strength of the purifying demonic lotus flame was far too vast and mighty. It was impossible for him to endure it alone. The terrifying flame permeated every part of his body and also filled his heart. It was impossible to expel these flames. Sooner or later, Xiao Yang's body would be incinerated from inside out. If this continues, Xiao Yang GG will definitely die. Sun Er's hand rubbed away a crystal tear that had fallen from the corner of her eyes because of her heartache. A golden flame suddenly surged out of her body. Her body drew a pretty arc in the sky before landing in the cluster of flames that was torturing Xiao Yang to death. Sun Er, you. The person who had suddenly barged in caused Xiao Yang to recover some of his mind, which had been overtaken by an intense pain. His eyes parted as he furiously cried out, but the beautiful figure who had charged into the flame embraced his body like a shake after he cried out. That soft touch and serene fragrance was like a spark that immediately lit a wild flame within Xiao Yang's body. Sun Er. Xiao Yang firmly hugged that beautiful, delicate, jade-like figure. He heavily panted while his eyes recovered some reasoning. He clearly understood just what was going to happen if this continued. It was the same as that time with Medusa back then, but he had been unconscious at that time. This time, however, he was still awake. Xiao Yang GG, you can only refine it if we are together. Sun Er's revealed an extremely pretty face. Her teeth gently bit Xiao Yang's earlobe while she enticed him with a bewitching voice. Those soft words finally caused Xiao Yang's eyes to turn bright red. He let out a low beast-like roar. With a ripping sound, soft clothes were wildly torn apart before they turned into ashes because of the high temperature. A romantic atmosphere soon covered this realm. Bang bang. A high temperature permeated the magma realm as a fire raged and spread apart like a furious dragon. The enormous surface of the magma sea occasionally erupted and formed shocking fire pillars. These fire pillars soon scattered down from the sky like rain. There was a 1,000-foot-large pink fireball around 100 feet above the surface of the magma sea. Flames fiercely burned while wave after wave of a destructive strength seeped out, causing the surrounding space to slowly distort. If one's sight could see into the fireball, it was vaguely possible to see two people tightly entangled together. A golden flame and a purple-brown flame climbed around each figure and blocked that demonic flame, which tried to invade from all possible openings. The human figures inside the fireball were naturally Xiao Yang and Zun Er. Xiao Yang's condition was much better after obtaining Zun Er's help. His body, which had originally turned into a mess, had also borrowed the undying effect of the 3,000 burning flame to gradually heal itself. The vast and mighty energy that the purifying demonic lotus flame had released poured endlessly into Zun Er's body due to the extremely fitting position of the two. The way they fit together relieved his body of the energy that had threatened to blow him apart. The enormous energy released by the purifying demonic lotus flame was gradually absorbed by the two of them together. This ocean-like energy caused Xiao Yang's and Zun Er's auras to suddenly soar. It was impossible to gauge just how long the purifying demonic lotus flame had existed, but the energy contained within it was naturally indescribable. If one could safely absorb it, it could nourish anyone. An enormous fireball floated in the sky as fire waves continued to appear on its surface, causing ripples to spread in a circular fashion. The two individuals inside the fireball kept their eyes tightly shut, as though they had fallen into a slumber. Golden and purple-brown flames continued to surge out of their bodies to block the high temperature of the demonic flame and protect their bodies. Of course, on top of this external scene, the interior of Xiao Yang's body was still at a stalemate. He had barely maintained the equilibrium within his body with the help of his perseverance and Zun Er's aid, but he was able to slowly refine the demonic flame essence now. Although this was occurring at a snail's pace, it was undoubtedly many times better than his inability to retaliate earlier. At the very least, the current Xiao Yang was able to sense a ray of hope. The searing hot realm was without even the slightest sign of life. There was only the large sea of magma that continuously spit out many magma pillars. A depressing dullness was the only theme of this world. Time also became blurry and monotonous amid this bitterness. Both Xiao Yang and Zun Er had sunk into a slumber. Not the slightest activity was emitted, but their abundant life force allowed others to understand that they were doing quite well. A three-colored fire sphere was gradually formed outside of their bodies with the flow of time. Golden, purple-brown, and pink. The three colors represented three types of powerful heavenly flames. Of course, among the three colors, the pink color occupied most of the space. Both the golden and purple-brown flames could only maintain tiny areas, but as more time passed, the golden and purple-brown flames began to gradually expand. Faced with the Gold Emperor incinerating heavenly flame and the heavenly flame formed from 5 types of heavenly flames, this demonic flame, which could only rely on its own ability to fight and had been weakened by Xiao Yang, slowly showed signs of retreating. The time taken to overcome the stalemate from the three-colored flames continued for an unknown period of time, but the fire sphere finally trembled on a certain day. The three colors had each managed to perfectly occupy 1/3 of the sphere. A mysterious equilibrium had formed from this clash. Flame mantra, refine. Xiao Yang, who was within the fire sphere, suddenly opened his eyes after this equilibrium was reached. A low voice was emitted from his mouth. Xiao Yang's heavenly flame and the purifying demonic lotus flame had already formed a strange connection after interacting for this long period of time. Hence, the two types of heavenly flames began to circulate along the Qi method path of the flame mantra after Xiao Yang had activated it. Rumble. Layers of energy clouds suddenly appeared in the sky when the purifying demonic lotus flame began to be refined by the flame mantra. These dark clouds lingered above the fireball as huge waves were stirred on the surface of the magma sea. Xiao Yang had detected this change in the magma world, but his expression did not change as a result. After this long period of refinement, he had already become extremely familiar with the purifying demonic lotus flame. There would naturally be some unusual phenomenon occurring when a heavenly flame of this rank was refined. Zun Er, it is time to reap a great reward. Xiao Yang studied the beautiful figure slumbering in his embrace and a warm smile flashed across his face. His arms gently hugged that beautiful figure's delicate willow-like waist while the seal formed by one of his hands quietly changed. After the change of Xiao Yang's hand seal, a wisp of the purifying demonic lotus flame in his body, which had been guarding itself, was finally refined. Immediately, a liquid-like vast energy reached every part of Xiao Yang's body. The medians within his body were completely filled within a moment. His flesh, muscles, bones, cells, etc., seemed to be like hungry ghosts that had not eaten for decades as they crazily devoured that endless energy. After sensing his body rapidly filling, Xiao Yang lowered his head and softly kissed Zun Er's slightly raised, red lips. That incomparably vast energy crazily surged into her body like floodwater as well. Splash. The refinement continued. Waves of floodwater-like energy circulated around Xiao Yang's body after being refined before being delivered to Zun Er's body. After being absorbed by her body, some of the remaining energy would be transferred back into Xiao Yang's body. Moreover, the energy that was transferred back had become even purer. There was also another faint feeling to it. This feeling belonged to the Gold Emperor incinerating heavenly flame. As this refinement continued, both Xiao Yang and Zun Er began to gradually form a perfect cycle. The endlessly mighty energy washed through every part of Xiao Yang and Zun Er time and time again. Both of their auras climbed as time passed. Crack. As the demonic flame essence gradually lost its ability to retaliate, that enormous fireball began to calm down and the wild violence in it weakened. Both Xiao Yang and Zun Er were tightly entangled in a strange fashion within the interior of the firefall. Layer after layer of a flickering faint golden-pink crystal slowly appeared around them. Finally, it transformed into a crystal egg-like object that wrapped around the both of them. Xiao Yang and Zun Er's aura completely vanished when this crystal egg formed. This magma realm had finally become void of life. Central Plains. 1 year had passed since the demonic flame had descended on the world. Although a year had already passed, the grand stories from back then were still being talked about by many people. A year was neither long nor short, but many things had still occurred across the Central Plains within a year. Soon after the demonic flame descended on the world, the Hall of Souls finally began to take revenge on the Sky Mansion Alliance for destroying the Man Hall. 1/3 of the cities belonging to the Alliance had been attacked. The Sky Mansion Alliance did not show the slightest sign of giving in as it dealt with the Hall of Souls' large offensive. The Alliance had gathered their troops and began to retaliate. Within a short year, these two superfactions had begun to fight like fire and water. Although both parties suffered great losses, a final confrontation did not occur. After all, the current Sky Mansion Alliance was no longer the same as back then. With powerful experts like Zi Yang and Xiao Chen, who were not weaker than the Chief of the Hall of Souls, present, even the Chief of the Hall of Souls did not have the courage to charge into the Alliance's headquarters. Moreover, that ancestor from the Pill Tower might not remain in the Falling Star Pavilion, but he had also given Yarrow Larrow and the others a way to contact him. With such an ultimate expert aiding the Alliance, the Hall of Souls was no longer able to threaten the Alliance with extermination. It was due to these many reasons that the Sky Mansion Alliance had not fallen to a disadvantage during this large-scale war against the Hall of Souls. The Alliance had even vaguely shown signs of gaining the upper hand. Thus, the reputation of the Sky Merchant Alliance reached a peak within the Central Plains. After all, not a single faction in the past could gain such a good result against the Hall of Souls. Many people sighed emotionally because of the Alliance. The position of as the overlord of the Central Plains was gradually changing from the Hall of Souls to the new Sky Mansion Alliance. The Hun clan did not appear to be providing the Hall of Souls with much aid. Although it had quietly dispatched some experts, these experts could not give the Hall of Souls an overwhelming advantage. Yarrow Larrow and the rest could only attribute this lack of aid to the Hun clan being restricted by the agreement. Of course, Yarrow Larrow and the others did not forget to constantly pay attention to the spot where the demonic flame had descended even as they fought this intense war with the Hall of Souls, but each probe only left them feeling disappointed. That area did not reveal the slightest unusual activity during this 1 year. If the dragon seal on Zi Yang's hand wasn't still present, even they would have thought that something untoward had happened to Xiao Yang and Zun Er. They had no solution to this situation. All they could do was gradually focus their attention on their battles with the Hun clan. While everyone's eyes across the Central Plains were attracted to the battles between the Hall of Souls and the Sky Mansion Alliance, news that shook the entire continent quietly spread from an unknown source. The Shi clan, one of the 8 ancient clans, had completely vanished in a mysterious manner just like the Ling clan. Everyone could vaguely sense a mystery envelop the Central Plains. The Shi clan was one of the 8 ancient clans. Although the Shu clan was not as well known as the Jiyu clan or the Hun clan, it was still one of the 8 ancient clans and not an ordinary existence. The Shi clan usually kept a low profile and rarely would news related to them spread, but keeping a low profile did not mean that they were weak. This Shi clan was relatively strong when gauged by their fighting strength. The Shi clan was a lot stronger than the Ling clan, which was the first to disappear. There were many powerful individuals within the clan who possessed an extremely powerful foundation. However, a super faction that possessed such a great foundation had once again mysteriously vanished overnight. Just thinking about the clan's disappearance was sufficient to cause one to feel a chill within one's heart. The Shi clan had disappeared the same way the Ling clan had. Their realms had both been shut before they disappeared. Once the realms reopened, millions of clan members and descendant citizens could not be found. Not one of them remained. Clusters of experts from various factions felt a chill rise from their feet to their hearts. These experts had entered the realm of the She clan and found the realm completely quiet and lifeless. Just what kind of terrifying existence could eliminate millions of individuals? Some of these millions of individuals included those top experts from the She clan. All of those experts were existences within the central plains that could shake the world with the stomp of a foot. Despite such existences, the She clan was still completely removed from this world. The information regarding the disappearance of the She clan appeared like a hurricane as it swept across the central plains. Every faction was startled by this shocking information. Some of those with sharp senses could vaguely tell that something was not quite right. All of these ancient factions were incomparably strong and their inheritance had lasted for thousands of years, yet 2 clans had completely vanished within a short 10 years. If such a matter had only occurred once, it could be written off as a fluke. If it occurred twice, it would really be strange. Moreover, the way both clans had disappeared was exactly the same. This gave one the idea that the perpetrator, who made the Ling and She clans vanish, should be the same person or rather the same faction. However, a situation that caused one to feel troubled followed. Everyone knew that there were only 2 factions across the entire continent that could quietly eliminate the ancient Ling clan and the ancient She clan. Those 2 factions were the Hun clan and the Jiyu clan. In an instant, many guesses and doubts were thrown toward these 2 factions. The Hun clan did not respond to these guesses, which matched their usual style. However, the Jiyu clan felt a headache forming as doubts were cast their way. Their relationship with the other ancient clans had been quite good, but the relationships between them had become a little awkward after the Ling and She clans had disappeared. The other few clans were clearly beginning to feel some doubt and fear for the Jiyu clan. Even some of their regular interactions had been halted. The Jiyu clan clearly felt a headache because of this troubling news that had appeared out of the blue, but the events this time caused them to be cautious. These developments were clearly not beneficial to the Jiyu clan. The faction who had struck had likely involved the Jiyu clan in their scheme on purpose. However, the Jiyu clan upper echelons felt some doubt and uncertainty because they couldn't figure out how it was possible for the Hun clan to possess such a frightening strength if they were really the perpetrator. They had managed to avoid the probing of many of the Jiyu clan's experts and eliminated the Ling and She clans without anyone else noticing either. Alternatively, could there be another terrifying existence that they did not know about within the Central Plains? Regardless of the Jiyu clan's guesses, they did not possess any evidence to prove their innocence to the other 3 clans. Hence, they could only remain quiet in the face of this suspicion. As the Jiyu clan and Hun clan remained silent, the remaining 3 clans of the 8 ancient clans, which were the Yarrow clan, Lei clan, and Yang clan, suddenly announced an alliance 1 month after the She clan had vanished. They called themselves the 3-clan alliance. The establishment of the 3-clan alliance had an extremely great impact on other factions. This was the first time an alliance had been formed by the 3 ancient clans since ancient times. After all, these clans were very competitive and had experienced many conflicts. It was easier said than done to abandon everything and form an alliance, but this time around, the 3 clans felt a great unease because an unknown danger. They did not wish to become the next Ling clan or She clan, but this mysterious murderer had been able to quietly eliminate the Ling clan and the She clan, so it was probably not going to be an overly difficult matter for that perpetrator to eliminate one of them. In order to protect their clan's bloodline, they had no other choice but to form an alliance at this moment. The other factions on the Central Plains slightly relaxed when the 3-clan alliance did not launch an army into the Central Plains after announcing their alliance. Instead, they spent plenty of resources to build a tunnel between their realms. Thus, if one party was attacked, the other 2 would be able to swiftly provide support through the spatial tunnel. After the spatial tunnels between the 3 clans were formed, the 3 clans appeared impregnable. At this moment, these clans finally began to gradually relax. After which, they also started to dispatch some experts. These experts continuously entered and exited the She clan's realm in an attempt to find some evidence to point to a culprit. The Central Plains was always extremely interesting, so nothing could remain in the spotlight for long. Even shocking events like the disappearance of the She clan and the formation of an alliance by the 3 clans had gradually left the spotlight around half a year later. Moreover, that mysterious perpetrator had seemed to have disappeared without a trace. It caused one to feel an uneasiness while sighing in relief. After being shocked for a period of time, the Sky Mansion Alliance also regained its calm. It continued to engage in an endless struggle with the Hall of Souls. At this moment, the 2 big factions were completely at odds. Today, one would attack the other's city. Tomorrow, the other would destroy one's branch hall. They exchanged a tit for a tat as they engaged in endless battles. However, long-term fight had begun to benefit the Sky Mansion Alliance. They were using this war to gain more strength. Not only had this war allowed the fighting strength of the alliance to become more powerful and unified, it had also attracted an increasing number of small factions, who had been pressured by the Hun clan, to join them. Hence, during this 1.5 years of war, The size of the Sky Mansion Alliance had expanded many times over when compared to before the war. The number of experts within the alliance did not lose to the Hall of Souls. Gaining strength through war had allowed the alliance to grow even stronger. However, there was a matter that caused Yarrow Larrow's group fill with worry and anxiousness even as their strength soared. The source of these feelings was naturally Xiao Yang. It had been 1.5 years since the demonic flame realm had shut back then, but they still hadn't obtained the slightest news related to Xiao Yang. This lack of news had caused many people's heart to become a little anxious. The Sky Mansion Alliance's chief might be Yarrow Larrow, but in the hearts of many people, that skinny and strong back was their mental support. They thought that as long as that skinny back was supporting them, the Sky Mansion Alliance would never fall. Regardless of how anxious they felt, reality was cruel. There had been no activity from that place even now. Time would not pause because of anyone. Hence, after the demonic flame was sealed for 2 whole years, the strands of hope in the hearts of many began to gradually dim. Yarrow Larrow's group could do nothing to stem such a situation. They could only halt some offensive battles and turn to defense. While the Sky Mansion Alliance changed its fighting method, the demonic flame realm had finally revealed some life after being quiet for 2 years. The demonic flame realm was still as hot as ever as an enormous crystal egg floated in the sky above the magma sea region. The surface of the crystal egg was sparkling. Occasionally, there was a faint fire seedling leaping up and down, appearing just like a fairy that was filled with spirituality. Crack! A faint sound was suddenly emitted from the silence. If one's eyes glanced over, one would see that the surface of the crystal egg had slowly started to crack. After this first crack appeared, an increasing number of cracks began to gradually climb across the crystal egg. In the end, a large crystal shell fell from the top. Bang! A pink and golden light suddenly rose into the sky after the crystal egg crack. Finally, this light turned into a curtain that scattered down from the distant sky. Clamor! An arm was suddenly extended from the light pillar as a figure violently stretched its lazy waist. The bones all over its body emitted a thunder-like sound that echoed around the sky. I have finally exited my retreat. A naked figure stepped out of the light pillar. Who else could the face of the figure belong to other than Xiao Yang? However, his black hair scattered over his shoulders, giving him a free and handsome appearance. If one were to carefully observe his eyes, one would discover that they had turned into 2 extremely tiny fire lotuses. The lotuses rotated and a mysterious suction force was vaguely emitted from them, as though one's soul could be dragged into them. Ah, Xiao Yang Jidi, why are you not wearing any clothes? A clear voice that sounded like a flowing spring in a valley while accompanied by an embarrassment appeared behind Xiao Yang soon after he had stepped out of the light pillar. Xiao Yang turned around and looked at the beautiful figure, whose long black hair scattered over her delicate waist like a waterfall. Perhaps it was because she had been in a slumber while training, but the current Sun Er's exquisite, peach-like face lacked a tenderness. Instead, it had gained the hint of a soul-stirring enchantment. Adding the faint embarrassment on her face, all it took was one glance and Xiao Yang was captivated. My wife is indeed beautiful. The naked man stepped through the empty air and scratched his head before he smiled and complimented the embarrassed lady in front of him. This retreat has probably exhausted a great amount of time. Xiao Yang lifted his head and looked all across the sky that was permeated with fire. Although this environment appeared the same as when he had undertaken his retreat, he was still able to sense a difference. Sun Er by the side gently nodded. The purifying demonic lotus flame was not an ordinary thing. If they did not have time, even the 2 of them together would not have been able to refine it. Xiao Yang Gg is likely quite powerful now, no? Sun Er rolled her eyes as she wondered out loud with a smile. It will not be difficult to defeat the chief of the Hall of Souls the next time I meet him. Xiao Yang slightly smiled. His voice relayed an extreme confidence. The benefits he had obtained from refining the purifying demonic lotus flame were incomparable. Based on his senses, his strength should have reached the initial level of the 5th star of the Dosheng class. This was a leap of 3 stars when compared to his intermediate 2-star Dosheng strength before he had taken the retreat. This great leap in strength caused even Xiao Yang to feel some disbelief earlier. Being an elite Dosheng, he was clearly aware of just how difficult it was to raise one's level within the Dosheng class. This increase of 3 stars would have required decades of training under normal circumstances. This time around, he had used the purifying demonic lotus flame to advance his strength. Around the entire world, the only spiritual object with the unbelievable ability to allow an elite Dosheng's strength to soar by 3 stars was likely just this 3rd-ranked heavenly flame. It is said that when a person reaches the top, all those around him will also ascend with him. This time around, thanks to Xiao Yang Gge, my strength has also ended up increasing a bunch, Sun Er softly laughed. During the refining process of the purifying demonic lotus flame, bits of the vast and mighty energy had also entered her body. Hence, she had also benefited. Although she had yet to break through to the 5th star of the Dosheng class, she had soared to the advanced level of the 4th star of the Dosheng class. It must be said that the gains that the both of them had attained during this retreat would cause others to be extremely envious. Xiao Yang was naturally happy that Sun Er's strength had soared. Although his strength might have ended up increasing more if he had absorbed the purifying demonic lotus flame alone, he knew he would have died from the backlash of the demonic flame had it not been for Sun Er's aid. How could he still be in his current state? I wonder what the current heavenly flame in my body. Xiao Yang's mind quickly returned to the most important matter. A thought immediately passed through his mind, but he was stunned to find that the heavenly flame, which had originally filled his body, had completely disappeared. This unexpected change caused Xiao Yang's expression to drop. The heavenly flame was something he relied on to survive. The disappearance of his heavenly flames would be a big blow to him. Xiao Yang GG, what is it? Sun Er by the side hurriedly asked after seeing the change in Xiao Yang's expression. Xiao Yang did not have the time to respond to her voice. He calmed down and carefully checked the interior of his body. Only after a long while did he suddenly detect something vaguely present deep within his body. Come out. Xiao Yang suddenly clenched his hand after sensing this thing. He let out a low cry and a pink-colored flame suddenly erupted from his palm. There seemed to be a faint golden light flowing around the edges of the flame like a metallic object. The appearance of this cluster of pink flames caused the surrounding air to distort. Then, the cluster suddenly began to wiggle. It subsequently transformed into a half-foot-tall baby in front of Xiao Yang's and Sun Er's stunned eyes. Ywa. The tiny fire baby's large eyes contained a pink flame, and they landed on Xiao Yang the moment the baby appeared. After which, it extended its flabby little hand and grabbed Xiao Yang's arm. The baby continuously rubbed Xiao Yang, appearing exceptionally affectionate. Xiao Yang and Sun Er were completely stunned as they stared at the fire baby, which was not very large. It was only a little bigger than an arm. At a glance, it was like a flabby little round ball. A braid was present on its little head while a small little cloth wrapped around the front of its body, leaving its buttocks visible. There was a pink lotus fire seal imprinted on its little head. At a glance, it appeared extremely cute. At the very least, there was a glitter flashing in Sun Er's pretty eyes. It appeared as though she was being flooded with maternal love. Ywa. The fire baby grabbed Xiao Yang's hand and swung it while Xiao Yang and Sun Er were stunned by this unexpected situation. A tender and strange sound was emitted from the baby's mouth. What is happening? Xiao Yang finally recovered at this moment. He looked at the fire baby, who refused to release his arm, and asked in a lost voice. Sun Er merely shook her head when she heard his clueless question. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Could it be that this is the new flame in your body after merging so many heavenly flames?" If the purifying demonic lotus flame was added, Xiao Yang possessed a total of 6 types of heavenly flames within his body. No one could be certain just what kind of change would occur when 6 types of heavenly flames were merged together. After all, no one in this world had tried merging 6 types of heavenly flames as an experiment. Xiao Yang fell deep into thought upon hearing her answer. His eyes returned to the flabby fire baby on his arm as he involuntarily pinched it. The baby's soft and smooth skin caused Xiao Yang to realize that this fire baby felt like an actual baby. The feeling of the fire baby's skin was exactly the same as a human. Moreover, he sensed that he seemed to possess a strange connection with this little thing whenever he touched it. That familiar feeling was exactly the same as when he had controlled the heavenly flame within his body in the past. This thing is really the heavenly flame within my body. Xiao Yang nodded with a solemn expression at this moment. He was certain that this fire baby was the new heavenly flame formed after merging the purifying demonic lotus flame, but even he was at a loss as to why such a change would occur. I sense a familiar feeling from this little thing. It seems similar to my Gold Emperor incinerating heavenly flame, Sun Er softly commented at this moment. Your Gold Emperor incinerating heavenly flame joined the refinement of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Thus, some of the essence of the Gold Emperor incinerating heavenly flame has merged into my body, Xiao Yang explained. His eyes continued to remain on the fire baby on his arm. The baby had a braid on his head. The 5 types of heavenly flames within his body had completely merged with the purifying demonic lotus flame. Of course, if one wanted to be more exact, one should say that his 5 heavenly flames had merged into the purifying demonic lotus flame. Although the 5 types of heavenly flames were larger in number, this number did not pose any resistance to the purifying demonic lotus flame, so they were completely merged into the purifying demonic lotus flame. If Xiao Yang had not already activated the flame mantra and refined the demonic flame, he would likely have tasted a far worse ending while trying to gain something. Haha, Xiao Yang GG. I once heard father said that only an extremely few heavenly flames are able to take shape after being refined by a person. If I have guessed correctly, this should be the newly formed heavenly flame fire spirit within your body. Sun Er smiled as she spoke. From the looks of it, this did not appear to be something bad. Xiao Yang slightly nodded. He seemed to have recalled something and the corner of his mouth twitched. He asked, in that case, How will I unleash the angry Buddha lotus flame when fighting with others in the future? He had examined his body earlier and the heavenly flame that had come wherever he called it had completely vanished. What would he use to agglomerate a fire lotus to fight with others? Yewa. The big eyes of the little thing that was hugging his hand and dripping saliva brightened upon hearing Xiao Yang's words. He lifted his little hand and a fire gathered on his palm. A fire lotus was quickly formed. Angry Buddha lotus flame. Xiao Yang's eyes were about to pop out of his head seeing this fire lotus form. The angry Buddha lotus flame was a skill that he had created. Other than him, no one else was able to unleash it, yet this little thing was randomly able to create it and at a speed that even its creator, Xiao Yang, could not match. This little thing has even secretly learned your do skill. Zuna covered her mouth and softly laughed. Yewa. Pride surfaced on the little thing's small tender face after having sensed Xiao Yang's shock. Two small hands were clenched and then released before many two-colored angry Buddha lotus flames formed above his palm. After which, they floated around him and continued to rotate. 10 angry Buddha lotus flames. Xiao Yang inhaled a deep breath of air after seeing these lotuses. Even he had never successfully created 10 angry Buddha lotus flames together. Although these fire lotuses were only created from 2 types of heavenly flames, the strength of such a number of them would be incredible. Yewa. However, Xiao Yang's shock did not end. After forming the 10 angry Buddha lotus flames, the little thing beckoned with his hand, and the 10 fire lotus suddenly clashed together before swiftly merging. Within a short instant, a fire lotus that caused both Xiao Yang's and Zuna's expressions to change rose from the clash. Xiao Yang's heart felt as though it had violently been grabbed as he stared at the half-foot-wide pink fire lotus, which appeared delicate and beautiful. Even his breathing had become a little difficult. Extermination. Fire lotus. Xiao Yang inhaled a breath of air as he softly muttered. The fire lotus created by the fire baby was his strongest trump card, the extermination fire lotus, but the strength of this fire lotus was many times more terrifying than any type of fire lotus Xiao Yang had ever created in the past. This time around, I have really picked up a treasure. This video will end here.